Jess Teress and the 92 Strangers by Jade Class at Richmond Hill School, Luton. Level 1, Mercinger Park. It was a regular Sunday morning in Mercinger, a city where rare animals live peacefully among humans. Two-nosed borovines ambled down avenues, seeking shady spots to rest. Giant bees, busily making honey in the city's huge municipal hives, buzzed songs of joy. And the children laughed as they jumped around on Pudding, the enormous cat-shaped bouncy castle in the middle of Mercinger Park. Jess Teress, a little girl with curly hair, red curly hair, smiled as she skipped along Mercinger Greenway with her family. Today was her 8th birthday, the day she'd inherit the warrior gem from her father. A magic gem with magic power to grant to its owner 2 wishes. Jess couldn't wait to try it out. Although he never said, Jess suspected one of his father's wishes had been to win the lottery because the Teress family never struggled for money. Excitement bubbling, Jess's mood dipped when she spotted Tiger Legoman whizzing towards her on his grass surfer. A cruel prankster, Tiger sneered at Jess. Fluing some itching powder into a Polish paramedic's turtle nest, then sped off towards the pond. Jess decided immediately what her first wish would be. I wish I was braver, so I could give Tiger Legoman a piece of my mind. After that, her plan was to wish for an endless supply of chocolate, which was hard to come by in Mercinger. As usual, when the family reached the regenerating bacon tree, they split up. Jess went for a wander round the beehives with her parents and took her baby brother Hugo to play on Pudding. Morning, Anaya, said Jess, as she neared the first hive and spotted her BBF, best bee friend. Invented any new games? Anaya didn't reply. Not because she couldn't talk. In Mercinger, most things could talk, and almost everything acted like a human being. But because right at that moment, a deep booming noise blasted through the air, and the ground began to shake. Level 2, Invasion. What the? Cried Jess, craning her head to see if the sky was falling down. It wasn't. The noise got louder. Boom! 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 The beehives shook like giant maracas. Look out, buzzed Inaya, pointing towards the regenerating bacon tree. Jess whipped her head around and her jaw dropped. Stomping through the park was a monster. Now Jess Teress was used to seeing monsters. They visited Mercinger all the time to buy giant bee honey for their babies. But she'd never seen one as huge as this before, or as angry looking. Bigger than Godzilla, its head was made of grimy water that showered the ground with dirt every time it took a step. It had 4 long arms covered in black scales and a bulging red belly that wobbled like a bowl of strawberry jelly. Its 3 legs, covered in woody thorns, were as thick as the bell tower on Mercinger City Hall. And judging by the rancid stench that whooshed from its mouth when it roared, it had terrible breath. Yuck. Petrified, Jess froze. The beast stomped over the playground, flattening the metal slide, though it was a paper cup. It lobbed the ice cream van into Mercinger Pond like a pebble. It kicked trees, sending them flying across the city, and it roared with such force that brick buildings toppled over like they were made of straw. Run! Came a desperate yell, jolting Jess from her stunned state. Jess turns towards the call, and her parents running towards her. In her father's arm, little Hugo wailed, failing his chubby arms around like a frenzied windmill. Mum, Dad, she shouted. What's happening? Oh, run! repeated Jess's mother. It's a bad breath flood monster. Run for your life! Oh my goodness. So that's what Jess did. She turned on her heel and ran as fast as she could, away from the dreadful beast, and for some reason seemed to be heading directly towards her family. My. Boom! 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 Level 3, flee the city. Caught up in a stampede of other terrified mercenaries, Jess found herself at the city's largest marina. With everyone and everything desperate to escape the flood monster, boats were filling quickly, her heart pounding and her forehead damp with sweat, just like mine today. Ooh. Jess, the crowd, to her family, from the corner of her eye, she saw 2 pizzas waving at her from a long boat. There, a space is in here, yelled one of them. Quick, jump in. Jess glanced towards the city as the sound of the monster grew faster. Where were the rest of her family? Remembering her mother's instruction, Jess ran towards the pizzas and leapt into the boat. That's 93, shouted a wiry-armed laptop at the boat's helm. We're full and ready to sail. As the boat pulled away from the marina, Jess gazed at the 92 strangers she'd found herself aboard with, and her bottom lip trembled. Don't cry, said one of the pizzas. Oh, you're safe now. Bad breath flood monsters can't swim. He thrust his doughy hands towards Jess. Hello, by the way. I'm Henry Pepperoni. He gestured to the other pizza. That's my brother, Cobby Green Salsa. People call us the Pizza Brothers. Jess was in no mood for polite introductions. But my family, she sobbed. I lost them. I don't know where they're safe. An arm fell round Jess's shoulder. Try not to worry, dear, said the arm's owner, an old lady who smelled of vinegary chip shop chips. You saw how many refugee boats were at the marina. I'm sure your family will have jumped on another. Jess drew in a sharky breath. Do you know where the boats are headed? The lady gestured to a laptop screen. I'd say from the look of that map, we're off to Australia. Jess gasped. She knew from her geography lessons that Australia was almost as far away from Mercinger as the moon. All she could hope was that the rest of her family had escaped the monster, and that they too were on a boat to Australia. Otherwise, she may have lost them forever. Level 4. Kraken attack. 3 hours later, exhausted and emotional, Jess had almost cried herself to sleep. When the boat began to rock, violent waves crashed onto the deck, and the laptop at the helm blasted his whistle. Look out! Shouted Cobby. Green Salsa slid off him as he jumped off his seat. It's a kraken! Jess's eyes widened in terror. A colossal octopus was heading their way, thrashing its huge, slimy tentacles and licking its blubbery lips. The kraken locked its single one orange eye. That's tricky. On Henry. Mine, it howled, twirling its black tongue towards the pepperoni-covered pizza. No! Screamed Jess, surprising herself. Go and pick on someone your own size, you big, slimy bully. The kraken drew back its tongue. Its eyes glowed red. It thrashed its tentacles like a toddler throwing a tantrum. I'm so sure some of you know that one. Okay. It let out an ear-splitting scream. Then, to Jess's horror, it flung her high into the sky where the air was so cold. She felt like her brain might freeze. Level 5, taking charge. The next thing Jess knew, she was sitting on a patch of soft moss at the edge of a forest, with a pizza on her head. How did I get here? She exclaimed. All I remember was being flung by a kraken, said Henry, sliding down Jess's hair. Arranging his pepperoni discs into the rightful places, he shuddered. I'm lucky to be alive. Krakens love pizza. Just then, the sound of a long, loud thump made the pair jump. The delicious smell of a banana split whooshed up Jess's nostrils. Puzzled, she turned to investigate and was surprised to see the kind old lady from the boat. Hobbling to her feet, the lady shook her head. It was a frightful experience. One by one, all 93 of us were flung left, right, and centre by that horrible sea beast. She thumped again. This time, the smell she produced was melted chocolate. Oh, don't mind my changing smell, she said with a wave of her hand. I fart delicious smells when I'm anxious. She held out her hand for Jess to shake. Don't laugh, but my name is Silly Bum. Jess was in no mood for laughing, and by the look of it, neither was Henry, who burst into tears of tomato sauce. I hope Cobby's all right, he sniffed, wiping his cheesy eyes. I've never been away from my brother before. Jess had never been away from her family either. What if the Kraken had attacked their boat too? What if they'd not made it to a boat at all and had been trampled into the ground by the flood monster? What do you think we should do? Sobbed Henry. Silly Bum made the air around 3 of them smell like succulent orange blossom. I have no idea. It was then that Jess realised she'd have to take charge. Jumping to her feet, she gestured to a building in the middle of a forest. Let's go and see if anyone lives there. Maybe they can help us. I'm not sure about that, said Henry. Raising his doughy arm, he pointed to a signpost nailed to a tree at the forest's edge. It read, Wolf Demon Forest. Jess took a deep breath. Have any of you got a better idea? Level 6, Wolf Demon Forest. Her heart pounding, Jess let her companions through the forest, determined to find help. She held a nerve as they passed a poisonous-looking spider. She held Henry's hand when he said his breedy little legs couldn't take another step through the slimy gloop that covered much of the forest floor. And she held her breath when Silly Bum accidentally let off a trump that smelled of rotten cabbage, which she said sometimes escaped her when she was hungry. Arriving at the building, an impressive black-built structure with a large chimney, Jess stopped to inspect a gravestone at the front of the garden. Its engraving read, Here lies the big, bad wolf. Jess gulped. Were they trespassing on a burial ground? Was this a religious building? She glanced above the building door. Etched into a brick were the words, Australia's Outback Orphanage. Looks like we're in Australia then, said Silly Bum, the scent of vanilla escaping from her bottom. I guess that's a good thing. All we need now are directions to the marina, where the other boats from Mercinger will dock. Nodding in agreement, Jess knocked at the door and hoped for the best. Level 7, the Fruit Pigs. The door was answered by a creature that looked a cross between a pig and a bruised pear. Gazing into Jess's eyes, it chanted a rhythm, a rhyme, which made all 3 of the whiskers on his chin dance. Little girl, by the hairs on my chinny chin chin, I'd love if you would step right in. Unperturbed by the creature's odd appearance, Jess burst into tears at relief at finding a kind stranger. The pig pair raised a trotter, patted Jess's back, and wriggled its snout. Don't cry, little girl, I beg of you. Come in and have a bowl of stew. Actually, said Henry, jogging to keep up with the pig pair, led into a straw-carpeted kitchen. We don't want food or drink, We want advice. At that, the creature's pinky brown skin paled. A monster attacked Mercinger, you see, added Silly Bum. That's where we live. And then a kraken attacked the boat we were trying to escape on, explained Henry, and flung us here with its slippery tentacle. And I don't know where my family are, added Jess with a sob. I need to get to the marina to see if they're safe. Can you give us directions? The pig pair sighed and shook its head. Directions sadly aren't my thing. But wait, let me ask my brother, Ping. As Silly Bum let off an anxious cookie-scented trump, the pig pair knocked on its hatch to the right. A creature that looked like a pig, crossed with an overripe banana, opened it. Hello, Ping, said Jess, eager to speed things up. My name is Jess, and I'm sorry to bother you, but we need to find the marina. Can you help us? The pig banana nodded. Come closer, Jess, and I'll explain. You really need to locate Pain. At that, Henry yanked a disc of pepperoni off his tummy against the wall. Look for Pain? What's that supposed to mean? The fruity pigs glanced at each other. In unison, they chanted, Pain's our sister, wise is she. She'll sure know how to find the sea. Simultaneously, they rapped their trotters on the floor, and a trapdoor opened beneath Jess, Henry, and Silly Bum. The trio plummeted into a room that looked remarkably like the coach of an underground train. Its only occupant, a creature that was half pig and half pineapple, smiled and waved its trotter. Hello there, folks. My name is Pain. I have a wise and helpful brain. Jess told Pain everything. In response, Pain pulled a know-all from a compartment in her pineapple-shaped head. Jess gasped. Phone-sized gadgets, know-alls, were incredibly rare and unbelievably useful. You could use them to discover anything. At last, they were getting somewhere. Level 8, Mr. Virtual. After clicking a few buttons on the know-all, Pain's beady eyes scanned the information that appeared. Her brow furrowing, she stared at Jess. Your family is in trouble, dear, but I can help you. Do not fear. Jess began to hyperventilate. What? How? Why? How? What kind of trouble? Excuse me, said Henry, who started to sob. But is there a way that you could stop talking in rhyme? This sounds serious. Yes, said Silly Bum, sternly. She drew Jess into her arms and nodded towards the know-all. Just tell us what you've discovered. As a waft of freshly baked scones escaped from Silly Bum's bottom, a sad look crept across Pain's face. Cursed fruit pigs only talk in rhyme, but read this, please, don't waste time. Grabbing the know-all, Henry began to read. It said the monsters that rampaged through Mercinger was created by Mr. Virtual, a corrupt computer program who is searching for a magical gem. It says he wants to hack into the gem's magic so he can grant himself unlimited wishes and become the richest, most powerful being in the universe. Jess gasped. My father owns a warrior wishing gem. Henry's cheesy brow furrowed. Yes, is that what the monster failed to find in your house? Mr. Virtual sent his accomplice to kidnap your family. No, yelled Jess, wriggling free from Silly Bum's arms. Henry's lips twisted to one side. It says the accomplice, someone known as Shadow Guy, won't release your family until your father has revealed the gem's location. Jess stared at Henry, a steely determination in her voice. I need to help my family. Where are they being held? Egland. Jess flung her arms into the air. Egland? That's on the other side of the world. How am I supposed to get there? At that, Pain wobbled over to the window of her train carriage room and pointed outside. There, in the woodland, beyond Australia's outback orphanage, was a station for the Orbiter, the roller coaster that circumnavigated the world. The Crayon of Light. Level 9. The orbiter was rapid, rumbling over tracks that scaled mountains and tunneled beneath oceans. It arrived in Egland in less than an hour. As Jess unbuckled her seatbelt, wondering where Shadow Guy might be holding her family captive, a crayon made of wax that shone as bright as the sun rushed over them. "You made it," it squealed. "Where are you?" said Henry. Due to travelling at supersonic speed, had lost all of his pepperoni slices. Oh. "I am the crayon of light," squealed the crayon. "I heard from the fruity pigs that you were on your way." It scurried towards a black stone paving slab and beckoned the trio to follow. "I'm here to help. Come quickly. We have no time to lose if we are to save the Teress family and prevent Mr. Virtual from getting his hands on the warrior gem." Jess, Henry, and Sillybum ran to the crayon, who gave them instructions. "Use me to write a question. My light power will show you the answer." Jess immediately grabbed the crayon and scribbled on the pavement. "Where are my parents?" A beam of light shone from the underground, and Jess's writing was replaced by the words, "In Shadow Man's secret base." In a waft of treacle tart, I love treacle tart, Sillybum grabbed the crayon. "Where exactly is Shadow Man's secret base?" she wrote. Another flash illuminated the floor, and an answer appeared. "In the basement of a yellow hotel." Jumping from Sillybum's tight grasp, the crayon lightly pelted towards the exit of the orbiter station. "I know where the yellow hotel is. Follow me." Level 10, the Yellow Hotel. Shaped like a giant baby, the Yellow Hotel was at least 300 stories high and as wide as 9 football pitches and as yellow as a bowl of custard. "Oh, I hope we're not too late," panted Henry as he, Jess, Sillybum, and their helpful crayon assistant ran through the hotel lobby. As they jumped into a lift, Jess tried not to panic. She knew her father well. He wouldn't reveal the warrior gem's location without a fight. Jess just hoped that she could rescue her family before Shadow Guy harmed them. After descending 17 floors below ground level, Jess and her friends dashed out the lift and found themselves in a long corridor. At one end was a white door labelled Grub. At the other was a black curtain guarded by 3 gruesome trolls. "That must be the secret base," Jess whispered. She pulled everyone back into the lift before the trolls could spot them. "How are we going to get past those guys?" whispered Henry, shaking in fear as one of the trolls shouted, "I smell pizza!" "Leave that to me," said Sillybum. Pushing her bottom out of the lift door, she filled the corridor with a smell of blueberry muffins. "Trolls love muffins," she explained. "They won't be able to resist themselves trying to find them." Sillybum was right. Seconds later, the trolls lolloped past the lift, drooling as they headed to the door marked Grub. Jess turns to her friends and took a deep breath. "Thank you so much for your help, but I think I should take it on my own from here. I don't want to put any of you in danger." With that, she ran down the corridor and drew back the black curtain. Level 11, the Shadow Guy. "Mum! Dad! Hugo!" shouted Jess as she saw the family huddled on the floor, locked in a locked metal cage. Not one of them moved. Jess tensed. Was she too late? Shadow Guy discovered where the warrior gem was and left her family to die? "Mum! Dad! Hugo!" she repeated, kicking the metal bars. "It's Jess! Are you okay? Can you hear me?" A long shadow swept from behind her and towards the cage. "They can't hear you," squeaked a familiar-sounding voice. Jess tried to stop her voice from wobbling. "Who's there?" Was this Shadow Guy an actual shadow? "I knew I'd get you here, Jess Teress," cackled the shadow as it transformed into the crayon of light. Jess staggered backwards. Where? How? Why? Who? As Jess struggled to understand what was happening, a shout came from the corridor. "Shadow Guy's a shapeshifter!" Jess turned and saw Sillybum dashing towards her with Henry in her arms. We heard the trolls gossiping. Shadow Guy took the form of the crayon light to lure you here. "Your smelly friend is right," cackled the crayon. "I knew you'd trust the weedy do-gooder." Dissolving into a shadow, they reappeared in the form of a huge black crayon with a blunt tip. Shadow Guy grinned like an evil goblin. There you go. "By the power of shadows, I can transform myself to resemble anything in the universe." Jess's legs turned to jelly. "What do you want with me?" "I want your father to tell me where the warrior gem is. If he doesn't, Mr. Virtual has ordered me to draw your death." He paused. "And if a crayon of darkness draws someone's death, then die." Level 12, the warrior gem. Transforming into a loud hailer, Shadow Guy approached the metal cage. "Wake now, you have a visitor." Freed from the deep sleep they'd been cursed with, Jess's family stirred. "Jess," shouted her father. "Sonny, you're safe." Midnight Teress, Jess's mother, hugged baby Hugo tightly. "My girl," she exclaimed, her eyes welling with tears. "I'm happy to—" "Enough of this sad reunion," erupted Shadow Guy, returning to the form of a black crayon. "Now tell me where the warrior gem is, Mr. Teress, or I will draw your daughter's death." "Tell him, Sonny," shrieked Midnight. Sonny's Teress jumped to his feet. Plunging his fingers in his mouth, he pulled a rainbow-colored stone from beneath his front teeth. "Here," he said, "this is the warrior gem. Take it." Jess gasped. She's never seen the warrior gem before. It was tiny but beautiful, and it shimmered like a river of rainbows. Sneering, Shadow Guy grabbed the gem. And at the same time, Sonny Teress threw it across the room. "Catch, Jess," he yelled, "and make a wish." With less than a millisecond to think, Jess caught the gem. "I wish all the Mercians to be back in Mercinger," she blurted. Immediately, a gust of a wild rainbow wind swept across the room. Whoosh! Level 13, rebuilding Mercinger. Back in the safety of Mercinger Park, Jess could barely believe her eyes. All around her, Mercians of all shapes and sizes plopped back into the city like drops of rainbow rain. "You saved us, Jess," shouted Henry, dancing a salsa at his brother. Bobby ran towards him. "Oh, thank you, Jess," said Sillybum. "You're a true hero." Jess shrugged. "But look at our beautiful city." A barren landscape. Only the regenerating bacon tree had survived the Flod monster's destructive attack. Jess squeezed the warrior gem she clasped in her hand and knew what her second wish would have to be. "I wish for Mercinger to be rebuilt," she whispered. In an instant, buildings rose from the ground. Roads repaired themselves. Pudding the bouncy castle was inflated. Trees sprouted and flowers bloomed. And an almighty Mercingian cheer erupted as the flood monster's damage was fixed. Jess smiled proudly and her parents' arms flung around her. When Tiger Legerman whizzed past them on his grass surfer, she tensed. "What's the matter?" said her father. Jess's shoulders slumped. "It's just, well, I've used all my wishes. How will I ever be brave enough to stand up to Tiger Legerman?" Sonny Teress laughed. "You survived a monster attack. You were flung from a boat by a kraken. You rode the orbiter to Eggland, and you rescued us from the Shadow Guy. You don't need a wish to be brave, Jess. You are brave." Jess smiled. Her father was right. She doubted anyone or anything would ever scare her again. "Now," added Sonny with a wink, Let's go home. We have a kilo of chocolate imported for your birthday. Jess grinned and looked at her mother. Really? Midnight Teress nodded. Really? And on our way home, I'll tell you about a story. It's about a man called Sonny who worked hard for all his money and used his own warrior gem wishes to bring 2 healthy babies into the world. The end.